Thank you very much for everyone attending. It's a full room. It's great. I'm Sean Connell. I'm the technical lead for the APIM team for CA in Northern Europe. We've got some of our other colleagues to cover the rest of the globe, etc., at the back of the room here. So some good jeering support. I'm going to cover you in literally about 10-15 minutes just on what is some of our experiences when it comes to mobile app development that our customers are looking to deliver from a user experience perspective. What does that mean? I want to be able to seamlessly allow our customers to come in, use our APIs. I want to allow them to enroll. I want to be able to consume the services, whether it's a bank, whether it's a utility company, quickly. What is the demand coming from the user space out there? Whether it's Touch ID, biometrics, whether it is geosensitivity, etc. So there's a lot going on, and how to make this quick and easy from a development perspective in developing new mobile apps for the enterprise. So one of the big challenges that keeps coming up is security, security, security. How do I make it simple to use, but at the same time is lock down the app to be more focused on behavior of the actual user itself? A lot of customers say to us, and a lot of mobile engineers say to us, oh, well, I have to integrate all these different open source libraries out there. How do I do that simply? Why do I need to use all these different frameworks, whether it's Xcode or whether it's Android? A lot of the time they're bringing in third-party open source libraries and they don't necessarily have the same level of trust in them, etc. And there's obviously then there's patch management, etc. They look for a one-stop shop in a lot of cases. Security is not straightforward. It's not simple. It is a moving target a lot of the time. You've got OpenID, OAuth, you've got Java Web Tokens. There's a whole alphabet soup of security standards out there. And that's only looking at the transport layer, the way the mobile app will come in and interact with the enterprise. Then it's the user experience. So I'm using biometrics. Hang on, I'm moving away from the mobile app. I'm moving into digital voice services, Alexa, Google Home, the Apple HomePod, etc. How do I secure you coming into a bank using an Alexa-type service, a voice-based service? You may say, well, OK, that's quite futuristic down the road. It's here. And the demand is now that I'm moving away from the mobile app, or I want to have a seamless integration between the desktop, the mobile browser, and the voice-based service out there in the future. So I want to put together a very quick, given that we've only got 15 minutes or 13 minutes left, 12 minutes, I want to give you a quick synopsis from our experience of what we're seeing typically coming from our customer base. They're looking for a single SDK. I want one SDK, whether it's Android, whether it is iOS, whether it's Xamarin, or if it's JavaScript-based. I want to have one SDK that does all the security, handles all the security, the user interactions, the demands of user interactions. I would like single sign-on between my mobile devices. Whether that is a desktop, whether it's a voice-based service. So it's me. I'm the identity. I'm interacting with these online services. I wouldn't be able to talk to those services. Fun enough, when we started off banking as students, we went to our local bank branch. Now we deal with mobile apps, etc. We've come full circle. We're going to be talking to our banks in the future. The fact that there's a chatbot or an AI engine behind the scenes, we don't really care. We just want to be able to do this securely. And when something goes wrong, how do I cater for that? SSO between native and web applications. How do I interact with those native web applications that we've all grown up with dedicated mobile apps, etc.? Multi-user support. So in the family scenario, you pick, or you're in a conference environment, you pick up a device. I want to be able to log in, use those online services without having to worry about the fact that someone else has used that device, or that the device has been jailbroken or rooted. I want multi-user support. So the device is something that is ephemeral, whether it's a virtual device or a real hardware device, shouldn't matter. From a security perspective and from an SDK perspective, I want it to be catered in that one model. Multi-factor authentication is a hot topic, especially the European data privacy regulations out there. So we're all happy to authenticate with our mobile device using a thumbprint, a voice print analysis, etc. But how do I do that such that I'm not exposing my biometric information? Again, bear in mind, you can't revoke your biometric voice print or your fingerprint or your facial recognition, etc. So there's standards out there like FIDO. How do I develop my mobile app such as FIDO compliant? At the same time is I'm giving that user, rich user experience of look at my screen, I talk to my phone to actually log in, etc. for a higher level of security. Social media login. So anyone who's got kids know that's the bane of our life, social media. It is whether I'm using my LinkedIn ID, whether I'm actually using my Instagram ID, etc. Why can't I bring my ID to the organization, to the enterprise? So when I was started to talk about this about 5 years ago, a lot of our customers said, ooh, magic, black magic, don't want to be bringing in social media IDs. Now there's the turn of the tide, which is the next generation of users. They want to be able to bring their Google, their Instagram, their Facebook ID into the actual enterprise. How do I handle that? How do I know it is Sean O'Connell behind that ID that's come in on Facebook, etc.? And at the same time I don't want to have to worry about how to do the integration. I just want to click and it's done behind the scenes for me magically. And I don't want to be able to build these complex dialogues. I don't want to have to do lots of integrations of various different third-party libraries. I want one single SDK to cater for social media login. Geosensitivity, rooted devices jailbroken. It's reality nowadays. For certain environments, they want to know about where you actually are. And it makes a lot of sense. So if you've got a high-value transaction going through your bank account, you may like that the bank will actually trigger and say, hang on here, you're transferring 10,000 euro from an account that you don't normally transfer money from when you're in that particular country or in that particular city. So can I step in? Like credit card transactions, you get a phone call to say someone is trying to run a small transaction through your credit card. Do you want us to block it? Similar type of idea, but it's in our control. And it makes life a lot more personal that I can put geosensitive services in the palm of the actual user. Rooted, jailbroken, do I want to trust a high-value transaction from a jailbroken device? Maybe not. But how do I detect that? To actually do it properly, there's about 4 or 5 different open source libraries out there. They're complicated to actually do the integration with. Risk-based evaluation of API calls. Okay, so I'm doing a transaction. It's a high-valued API call. Haven't seen that device before. It's a high-value transaction. Maybe it's a rooted device. And it's outside the normal pattern of behavior of the actual user themselves. It could be changing of their home address as a utility bill. It could be a high-valued banking transfer, etc. Either way, is having that federated view of a risk-based evaluation of an API call through a single SDK is quite powerful. And we've proven it with services like Verified by Visa, which a lot of people would already know. By using that type of evidential data, you can make real accurate views of whether that transaction should actually go ahead, or what we call is two-step-up authentication. Push notifications. It should be platform agnostic, whether it's Android, iOS, Firebase, or any of the other different flavors out there, whether it's Raven and Carrier Pigeon, SMS, or completely avoiding a transport mechanism. I want to have push notifications, but setting up push notifications in a mobile app is actually quite tricky. Whether you're doing it with the Google Communication Network or with the APM from Apple or the other wireframes out there, it's actually quite tricky to do it properly and do it securely. And if you look at certain environments or certain scenarios like open banking, PSD2, you're not allowed to use SMS notifications because it's not secure. So they're asking for push notifications. Finally, out of this shopping list, again, I apologize for rushing through the shopping list and we can talk afterwards, open sourcing it. I want to open source the SDK. Why should it just a single corporation own the actual source code? Make it open source. Invite the open community to come in and help develop these SDKs. And that's what we've been doing in CA for the past couple of years. We have a team in Vancouver working with us in both India and Europe to develop this SDK and make it open source. So one SDK allows you to register your mobile device, log in with social media login, do risk-based evaluation of your transactions or your API calls, secure the interaction between the mobile device and your back-end APIs, and at the same time is to enforce different types of security standards. As I say, there's a myriad and an alphabet soup of security standards. Having that SDK to cater for those different scenarios. So, again, very cluttered diagram here, but a rough summary of what it's all about. We mentioned about different type of, whether it is using TLS, certificate authentication, certificate pinning, risk-based evaluation, biometrics, down to single sign-on. Single sign-on is quite a powerful facility when you look at high volumes of transactions. I want to be able to get from one device to the other. I want to be able to transact very quickly. So, for example, in the betting industry, you could have upwards of 20 million users coming in at the same time. So I want to be able to scale for that number of users. I want to be able to handle that securely in real time. At the same time, I want to be able to step in quickly if there looks like there's something going on from an API call perspective that should not be allowed. So I'm going to attempt to do a quick demo. Again, that's our URL for where our open source SDK is. It's up on GitHub. So I'm going to try and do a quick live demo of this. But our internet is a little bit challenged at the moment. So I'll just see if this works. I'm going to log back in. So immediately in the login dialogues, again, this is just a web interface. You've got social media login, whether it's Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. We've QR code login. I'll explain what that is in a second. And then your standard login credentials for the enterprise. QR code login allows you to transfer your login session from your browser through to a mobile app. You scan the QR code, you're logged in, your session's transferred. You can be auto-logged out when you're logged in on the desktop itself. So you're in the office, you want to transfer your login session to your mobile device, but happen to remember long-winded passwords, etc., etc. Then you just literally scan the QR code and you're instantly logged in. Let me just log in here. Now, I've been playing around with this today, and hopefully it does work. I zoom in here for a second. One of the things I want to show you is, first of all, when we're using the mobile app that's built with the actual SDK, we're tracking the location of the device. We're getting device status on the actual device information off from the, in this case, it's an iPhone. Part of that information is that device jailbroken? Has it been breached? Is it rooted? If it is, then the backend API can make an access decision whether it should allow the transaction to go ahead or not. Based upon one idea, is it jailbroken or not? Should I trust it? If something is jailbroken, there could be surreptitious software that's actually capturing keystrokes, capturing bank account information. Not only part of the information, let me scroll back here, is I am also tracking the location. Let's see if we can scroll in here. I'm tracking the location of the device. So when the user logged in, we can't see it actually a bit there, but we can see we're actually in the Clarion. If I zoom in here, we can see we're actually in this area of Stockholm. So it's geosensitivity of information. Now I'm going to show one last thing. I've got 54 seconds, so I'm going to do this very quickly. Do a transfer of some funds from bank accounts. This is risk-based evaluation. So anything over 500 euros is going to trigger an exception in a rules engine, or risk-based engine. Now, the number of different mechanisms can be applied here. One of them could be biometric authentication. But in this case, what we're going to do is an IVR push of a one-time password. So it's been configured to call my mobile phone, which probably, let's see if it works. And we put it on speaker.
CA Open Banking Voice Service. Your one-time password is 2384231. To hear this again, press 1 if you...
Thank you very much. So there are different ways of managing the distribution of the one-time password. I may choose not to use one-time password. I would say I want to use biometrics. I want to use voice print. At the same time I want to forget about all that integration. I want to integrate with Amazon Alexa. When I talk to Alexa, that authenticates me. Therefore, the transaction should go allowed to go ahead. So you have all these different combinations from a technology perspective, but available in that SDK. Time's up.
Thank you.